Hi, everyone. Welcome once again to another edition of the Extraordinaire Within You, uh, hosted by Ejogam FM and all of us. And Kavita, please take it away since this is your baby.
Thank you, Vince. And welcome back, everyone, to our fourth session now of the Extraordinaire Within You, which is our global mentorship platform where we invite amazing and very successful leaders in our field to join us and share their journey and their story. And before we jump into my introduction for our amazing speaker today, Dr. Alan Tita, I just wanted to remind everyone the mission of this and why this project came about. As a young MFM myself, we always see and hear about all these successful stories and things that our amazing leaders are doing in our field. But often we have to wonder, like, how did they do it? What was their mindset? What was the motivation? What were the things that helped them achieve those things? So we can hear these stories to help inspire us and let us realize that we too can do amazing work to help contribute to our community in a positive way. Today, our guest is Dr. Alan Tita, who is the endowed professor of OBGYN, senior associate dean and MFM specialist at the University of Alabama in Birmingham. He also holds a master's in public health and a PhD in perinatal epidemiology and is the director of Mary Hearsing Institute of Global Health at UAB. So, as you can hear, that is such an incredible introduction already for all the amazing work he's done. So, I'm looking forward to hear more about how he got into doing all the things he's done. And before we do that, we always love to share a little gratitude as well as to something to start off the day. And as we're sharing our gratitude, I invite our listeners to also think of something you're grateful for today. So, Alan, I'll let you go ahead and take it away if you have something you want to share with us that you're grateful for today.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much, Kavita. Thank you, Vincenzo. And thank you to everyone who is tuning in now. It's really great to be here. Thank you for the invitation. And I am really, in the moment and thankful for this opportunity to reflect and, share a bit of my story. And it's an honor to be able to have this opportunity to, bring this to the fore and hopefully people, get one thing out of it. So thank you for this.
Thank you. Vince, how about you?
I guess I'll dedicate today to my wife. We've talked about a lot here about happiness and companionship and social relationships, and I love to be here. With Alan and you, social relationships, but hopefully the personal side at home. It's a very good moment for us, and again, Federica is really a big column of my happiness, a main column of what keeps me going every day in a wonderful way. What about you, Kavita?
Yeah, thank you. No, absolutely. I think gratitude for family and, work and our life, everything is it's the exact same things I share. And today, just another additional thing for me is I'm very much a nature lover. I really love the environment. And I think this past week, I finally starting to see little buds bloom on the trees, reminding me of spring. Feels like it almost feels like a rebirth in some ways. So it's always something I'm very grateful for during this time of the year. It just feels like lots of positive things are about to happen. It's a good feeling. All right. Well, I think, without further ado, we'll just go ahead and jump right in. And one of my favorite questions to always take off these sessions is, how did your childhood shape who you are as a person today? I love taking it back all the way to, your upbringing, because I know you've had a pretty interesting journey from, where you were born until you're here today. So let's hear it.
Yeah, no, thank you, Kavita. Yeah, my childhood really defined and helped shape, how my story has unfolded. Very early on, my parents separated, so I really had very little time living with them together. I spent a good part of my life early on living with my mom, who was a nurse, and through that, got exposed to her books, got exposed to the community, healthcare community around her, spend time with her in the hospital. And so becoming a physician currently was rooted in that exposure that my mom's profession and all the things she had around her related to healthcare brought to me. So, yeah.
Yeah, well, and go ahead, Vince.
No, but maybe you want to also expand on where you were
Yes,
raised and
yes, yes,
the
yes, yes.
cultural
No,
background.
yeah, no, just right behind me in Alabama, and no, yeah. So just going back to that, this was in Cameroon, in Central Africa, and Cameroon is a bilingual country, officially French speaking and English speaking, with English speaking minority. So I grew up in the English speaking part of Cameroon.
Mhm.
And then through, again, that early exposure, always knew I wanted to become, a medical doctor. And then, on national days, we would go out and do a whole national march past. And I was so taken by these military doctors who had their jeeps with an X on it. And it was all very, very, organized. So I grew up thinking I would be a military doctor. And then obviously went to medical school in Cameroon, um, where at the time that was the only medical school, and then started to think more about what I wanted to do. Saw some of the challenges that women face. Learned some more about those, and by the time I got to third, fourth year of 7 years of medical school, I knew that I wanted to be in women's health and that I wanted to make a difference, in women's health. And a statistic that stayed with me was just this one, that maternal mortality,
Mhm.
in these countries like Cameroon, can be as high as 100 times
Wow.
more than maternal mortality in certain high income countries. And at the time, it was thought to be the highest level of disparity in health
Mhm.
outcomes between
Mhm.
high income and low and middle income countries. So yeah, that shaped my path forward in terms of pursuing opportunities to
Mhm.
make a contribution to women's health.
Wow. I think for a lot of people that may not know how, it is obviously very heartbreaking to hear the mortality rate there still high. And as someone that, is from Bangkok, Thailand, myself, an international country, the hospital, the training environment itself is so different from what a lot of people are familiar here with in the US. Can you paint a picture of like what does the maternity ward look like out there in Cameroon? Like, is it the when you were doing your training back then?
Yes, and these are different levels of a maternity setup. I even after medical school spent a year and a half working in a rural
Mm.
missionary hospital in Cameroon, very underserved area. But yeah, a maternity would be similar to, having a table where someone would go, be brought into during labor and when it's time for delivery. But then you would have this floor with multiple beds where women would be in labor and then only move into a room for the brief
Mhm.
period of delivery and moved back. Um, Obviously, nothing like electronic fetal monitoring. You had to have your ear device to listen to the heart rate, and that still, in the vast majority of places, is what is still used. And then just limited material and supplies to be able to do things like sterilization. So you will have containers where you could use a speculum or use some other device and then drop it in to have it sterilized. Now, that's in some of the more remote facilities. And then, even in well established facilities, you can make a decision to do a cesarean section, an emergency cesarean section, but then you have to write, a prescription and give to the patient's family to say, get this item so we can get this done. So it can be a challenge having those supplies. One of the really great things about working in a missionary facility was the fact that we did not have to hand out prescriptions and wait for the supplies to come in to be able to do those procedures. We called the procedures and took care of the patient, and then worried about whether the items were paid for, or not later. And that really had a huge impact on me, but also helped me in a way because I was able to, practice. Even as a generalist, was able to do those surgeries and do them in a way or with limited restriction, and it really felt like I was doing things to help address this problem of maternal mortality and morbidity in that setting.
Wow.
I wonder, I'm looking Cameroon, medical student, young OBGYN. But how did you get to, be chair and everything else you have done now, New England Journal and all this stuff? What do you think? And, we don't have probably a story that would take 3-4 days, but what do you think were the key moments, in that path, from Africa, to here?
Yes. So this, and I started with some of the important parts of working in this rural missionary facility with people from all over the world, in terms of staff from all over the world who, in fact, taught me some of the tools, hands-on tools of the trade, was instrumental in opening my eyes to, just the realm of possibilities out there. So I started thinking that, at the time, given the just huge public health problems, that public health training would be one way to arm myself to make a contribution. So I pursued a master's in public health, was a master's in international health in the UK, and was lucky to get a scholarship to do that. But after that, and thinking some more, I really wanted to pursue this dream of becoming an OBGYN, and for several reasons, coming to the US was the way to do that. I always felt like I wanted to get this training in the US. So I moved here, and as many international medical graduates know, you pay your dues, right, as you want to get into the system. So as I was thinking about, how to get in, I decided I had to, and got really great advice by talking to people, that I wanted to continue my Masters of Public Health and pursue a PhD in epidemiology while, keeping my goals in view. So I did that, and that opened, that was in Houston, at UT Houston, and that opened other avenues, other contacts, faculty OB/GYN that I got to interact with, who wrote letters, and then at the end ended up marching into Baylor College of Medicine to do my residency. So that's how this came about, and that's how I think one of the most important career decisions was to do that PhD in epidemiology, because that armed me with so much additional skills to complement the, my clinical training that down the road, have proved to be very, very useful. But just getting to know people, getting to talk with people, I think, and having support from people is what has brought me here, and together with putting in the work. We all have to put in the work.
Did you know anyone, Alan, or you just took a plane and
Oh, well, I had family. I had family in Houston. That was it. So I had a place to go to, but did not know anyone in the OB/GYN or medical field. So we had to develop those contacts, and often would call local people and write to them and say, hey, I'm interested in doing this. And, you send out 100 and you get 2 responses. And sometimes those 2 responses are exactly what you need to move to the next step. So I'm very grateful for those opportunities, and I do have colleagues in the MFM world currently who were like held my hand and wrote letters of recommendation that I'm very grateful for. So when it comes to mentors, I think I've had so many along the way that have helped me get to this point.
I want to show something. I'll give it to you, Kevin, in a second. People can watch us live, and I know hundreds and hundreds are. I can see their numbers, and this is just, I think, what you were talking before about Cameroon, and there's somebody who's listening talking about your insight. Kavita.
Yeah, no, I really appreciate that. And I love, how you started your journey there. You went through public health epidemiology, you got MFM, and now you're currently, the leading the Cameroon Health Initiative from where you're at, and you participate with, seems like the partners with some hospitals in Cameroon. It seems like such a full circle moment, So how did that come about? Like, what was your inspiration? Did you always know early on that, when I get to the top and do all these things, I want to be able to get back to Cameroon? Or what was the inspiration to do that? And how did you go about making it happen so successfully?
Thank you, Kavita. By the way, I'm still trying to get to the top. I don't know that it's an active goal, but yeah, really, where this started, as I indicated earlier, was thinking about doing something to address maternal morbidity and mortality in that setting. So I have a saying that I use very frequently, and I know others do too. It's an African saying which says, if you want to go fast, go alone.
Mm-hmm.
But if you want to go far, go together. And I think it's really, this saying is really, been the way that things have unfolded for me, like building up collaborations, and most importantly, people being open to collaborating, move things along. So to come back to your question, there was always that goal to do things that impact Cameroon or a low and middle income country setting. And so even as a resident, when we were going to do a residency research project, I used the opportunity to go back to Cameroon to do that, and just did a survey on evidence-based practices, qualitative and quantitative survey that turned into two, papers. But I spent a month of an elective time in Cameroon and taught an entire region and spoke to many medical and healthcare authorities. And this was all the way back in 2004, 2003, 2004. So it's really more than 20 years in development. And those relationships continue to fuel, what we are doing there today, and with so many collaborators. In fact, this morning, one of the calls I just had was with a team in Cameroon with about 20 people all over the country talking about maternal morbidity and perinatal morbidity and mortality. So what is the Cameroon Health Initiative? It's a collaboration between us here at UAB and partners in Cameroon from the government, and also from the missionary non-governmental organizations there, as well as from a local university. And we have others who are involved in this, UAB faculty, trainees, as well as the same in Cameroon. Quite interestingly, what we did was to secure $20,000 US and did a number of pilot grants, right? A number of pilot grants in this area of focus, HIV, maternal infection, etc., and build this level of collaborative groundwork that has subsequently yielded upwards of $10 million in grants of different forms, NIH, industry, non-governmental, number of trials going on, number of training programs, different healthcare service initiatives, and engaging a broad swath here in the US and in Cameroon. And that's something I'm very thankful for, and hope that more continue to engage to bring about impact in improving
Wow.
terms.
No, that's amazing. That's very impactful. And the first place that you went, you said you went back to elective. Was this your medical school where you did your med school, or were you doing?
No, I went back to the region where I, grew up, and met with the health authorities there. And this ended up being my residency research
Mhm.
thesis, but it also ended up being my PhD thesis,
Right.
2004, 2005. So just getting it done. It wasn't a huge, people think a
Yeah.
PhD this should be this huge, big, life-saving project. No, you can start really small, and there is plenty of time down the road to build up a program.
I love that. I love that you said that, because for people that think about tackling or doing something like this, it almost seems like this big mountain of like, oh, it's such a big project. But I love that you said you can just start really small, like as a residency project, and build up over time and create something so impactful along the years.
Yeah, absolutely.
One thing I want to emphasize about what you said, Alan, is the fact that you really worked on your strengths. I remember actually one of my mentors, Dr. Wapner, um, said when I was very young, like, you speak a few European languages, you should go to Europe all the time, collaborate with them. I don't have the same background. And I'm like, I thought you wanted to see me here and see a lot of scans and ultrasounds and not go to conferences and do research and grants with Europe. You did the same thing. You came
Mhm.
to Cameroon, you went back, in fact, to your own region. I think it's an important message for our young listeners to not be afraid of who you are, of your friends. You obviously speak French, maybe you speak even more local languages, you understand the culture. And
Mhm.
it's something that I'm sure not only Kavit and I, but everybody envies, that you can, relate to Cameroon so well, better than certainly I could ever do. I think that's makes you happy, obviously, but you can do a wonderful thing that very other few people could do. I want to ask you back about your drive. I think you touched on it, earlier on, but where did your drive really come from? Maybe going back to, you were talking about, I think, your mother and Cameroon and your experiences. Maybe there was a case or something you said, or you saw, or you, and also where your drive comes in now. Maybe how much you want to change the world, and how I'm making you smile. Too big of
Yeah,
a question.
yeah. So I think, depending on, not even I think, it's really a fact that depending on where you are at each point, the drive begins to,
Yeah.
change. Early on, I thought, well, I am shaping up to be a statistic, coming from a divorced home, and, it's like you already the headwinds, against you. But so for me, there was really putting in the work was very
Mhm.
important, to put in, the work. Hard work, I thought, would be one way to overcome many things. But as I, went on this journey, I remember when I was doing my internship in a semi-urban location in Cameroon. My goodness, and also later years in medical school, I saw so many young women coming in and dying from horrible infections,
Mhm.
um, and from all kinds of attempts to, do abortions, from hemorrhage. It was just it left, an impression on me. The other one was being in this rural facility and having so many come on in early on in the AIDS epidemic, coming home to die. So part of the job was just talking to people about their diagnosis of AIDS, and then saying, I don't have anything else to offer. That was a very, very, very difficult time. So, in moving forward, this really, I think, subconsciously or consciously got me to think about challenging the status quo, think about doing things that can, even if it's moving the needle 1 inch, doing it. And it doesn't take, a this thing don't just it doesn't take it just takes small incremental efforts to make that contribution. And so that's the drive. And so I've been very fortunate to come to the US. um, that was a key decision in coming to UAB to do my fellowship, because I could see that UAB at the time and currently still had a very strong global health presence, but also had a very strong presence in the US uh, healthcare and research system, right? So that drive to be able to make a difference for me made UAB very, very top among the places that I, wanted to be. And I feel like being here has provided me with the opportunity to be able to do, a number of things. Now, at this point, my main drive is to just try to see how I could, help or contribute or provide guidance to others who are at those earlier stages, where I was, and how can I help mentor people and, help shape the next generation. That is the most important goal for me right now.
Wow, I love that. And I love that, one thing you said there that I just wanted to highlight is because you knew what your goal was, and you followed that. You had this vision that you wanted to help, the healthcare mortality back in Cameroon. Even your choice in choosing the institution you ended up for your training aligned with what your vision and your goal was. So I think that is a beautiful thing for people to recognize, that once you know your strengths, align your strengths with the environment that can support that, and that's how that goal really flourishes. That's wonderful.
Yeah. So let me briefly add to that, because this may help some, some of us. For to pick a fellowship program, I actually had a list, and I had a thing about 10 different criteria that I was looking for. Right? I laugh sometimes and say UAB was not on that list. Right? I was never going to come to Alabama. Right? Right? I mean, just on the face of it, knowing the history about Alabama, who come to Alabama? What? Anyway, so, but I was fortunate again in talking to people, and had another mentor in my residency who had trained here, who said, "Hey, you have to go see it. Don't end up there, but just go see." And I spoke to the chairman at the time. I'll call his name Jolie Simpson. The other person is Michael Gardner. People I'm very grateful for. Jolie also said, "Hey, great place. Go see it." So, from not being on my list and coming here to interview, and then going back and reevaluating my list, UAB shot to the top of my list. And then it was a matter of coming. Let me just come for 3 years and do my fellowship and get out of here. All right. So it's approximately what I've been here 20, counting on 21 years now since I came into the fellowship. So.
Wow, you're definitely the right person in the right place at the right time.
Yeah, a win-win, I think, for everyone.
Yeah.
So, Alan, it just happens that last night I finished reading one of the best books I've ever read. Is Nelson Mandela's The Road to Freedom, I think it's the right
Yeah.
title.
Yeah.
And what a book! It's kind of his biography, and it goes all the way. A story in South Africa. What does that make you think of? Having the background you have, also from Africa, being in Alabama. Disparities, racism. Today's situation. Obviously, the book is very empowering. It's a success stories in some ways. I know there's a way to go in South Africa as well. One man together with many, many others. If you read the book, you understand that there were obviously hundreds of people that lost their life, for freedom in South Africa and the end of apartheid. But what are your thoughts about something like that?
Yeah, great. Thanks for bringing that up. And just to say, I was very lucky to, this time visit South Africa. Just a few Christmas, I was out there in,
Mm.
in Cape Town, and then visited the prison where Nelson Mandela spent a good chunk of
Mm.
his life, and that brought some level of, really of reflection and kind of living in history, and looked at a number of other places where he had been, um, and I think. And that book you mentioned is one that I have and encourage my kids to read as well. Just to my kids were born here in the U.S., but it's very important to know just
Yeah.
what the history is. Coming back to Alabama, we've been able to do some things and even go into there's a very well established civil rights institute here that captures the history of civil rights in the South, and we actually hosted a global health symposium, our inaugural global health symposium, where we brought about 200 people from around the world last in 2023 October, and held a dinner at this Civil Rights Institute, and opened it up. Right, people could have dinner and go, and people were going in who had never been here and coming out crying. One of the sayings that you will see at the institute is this whole concept about the force of argument, and not the argument of force, and that's a principle that I strongly abide by that. And that's what I think Nelson Mandela did for the most part, was continue to push forth this force of argument, um, and doing that in a way that rallied people. And being in Birmingham and thinking about what someone outside really immediately thinks about the history, the U.S. history, it's been very, uplifting to me in a sense to see that that is not what is around us, every day. This is a very cosmopolitan place to live in. All the things that you can have in a big city around us. And I've had some very, very interesting encounters with people who were um, there at the time of civil rights. So, for example, coming in and you know, chatting with a cab driver who drops me in front of a building and tells me, listen, I am so proud to see you going into that building and get this job, because in our day, we could not come in through the front door. We had to go in through the back. And he is saying this in somebody who lived that, and is saying it with a tone of gratitude, right? And pride, and saying how much, things have evolved and come on. And then also meeting this old lady who is talking to me about benefits and really crying, looking at my package and really crying and saying, my goodness, I'm so happy to see you here, and to see, that you're being treated as well as anybody, and also and saying that, and also being proud. So I think we've come a long way. I know we've come a long way, and I'm very, very grateful for people who made that argument early on. And I think there are still arguments to be made. I look around me and see people who are very reasonable, people that I respect. We may not agree on everything, but I think as we continue to make arguments, we continue to evolve, and we should not be shy about making those arguments when they have to be made to move forward. So, writing back to Mandela, I think he's a really great example of that. Martin Luther King is a great example of that. But these are people who are blacks, but there are people across all kinds of diverse spectrum or spectra that continue to make these arguments to move things forward. And in our present day, right, these arguments are being made, and I'm very hopeful that we will continue to make progress.
That's great.
Yeah, no, absolutely beautifully said. And thanks so much for touching on that topic. I think it's so important and, for sharing your insights and continuing to do what you do to carry on the legacy of all the people that fought to get here. And, I just wanted to touch a little bit about your belief earlier. You said that's something that you believe. What are, I feel like, you as a chair of the program and everything now, what are some core beliefs or values you really value in the workplace for you, as someone leading the team?
Yes. Excellence is very important. You have to have people who are, the best team, are people who, want to be excellent in what they do. I actually had an argument or discussion with someone who said, why do you want to be excellent if you can be good, right? I think excellence really allows us to move forward. So that's one, put in the work. And so hard work is the other. But importantly, diversity is really, really important. And I've run a really huge, big research team, and I see every day how that makes a difference. I also see every day how diversity makes a difference, even in our clinical care, because you can come on and encounter that patient that did not work out with anyone else, but for whatever reason, works out with you, and everything becomes good. So that's very, important. And then collaboration is again going together is very important, and being considerate of others and treating them as you would want to be treated.
No, I love that. And I love that, the diversity. When people think of diversity, I think, the diversity in how we are, our backgrounds and everything. And I think it also exemplifies the diversity in strengths. Because when you bring a diverse group of people, you're bringing so many unique strengths to the table too, which is really amazing. So how do you keep your team motivated and staying excellent?
Wow, that's probably a great question for the team, right? One of the things, I'll just take an example. One of the things, so if you don't know where you're going, right, you cannot get there, or will not get there in a timely way. So I think it's very important for the team to know where we all want to go, and so having some guidelines or some call strategy, or it's very important for that to be upfront, and that people hear about that as frequently as possible. This is where we are headed, and these are the kinds of things we need to be doing, to get there. That is one. Two is I just look, and probably need to do this more, but really looking for every opportunity to be thankful for the team, to provide feedback to the team, positive feedback, and also, negative. I wouldn't say negative, because even when it's don't do this, it's still positive feedback in moving people to the right direction. So feedback, on both sides of the spectrum is very important, and then finding ways to get together. The other thing that later on in my life I've come to realize is that it's not just all about the work and professional setting and everything, and it's something I want to do more, to really think about families, think about what is important to team members, and make sure that those things are being addressed. So if I take it, for example, a young mentee, yes, put in the work, strive for excellence, etc. But yeah, if family is very important to you, make sure you're putting that time to, hang out with family. If there are other things that you like, music or make sure you're putting time to do those things. So, yeah.
Beautiful. Alan, going back to some personal, I've just thought of a personal question just looking at the screen here. Um, Always known you as Alan Tita, but there's a T and an N in between. Is there a story to this?
Oh Lord! And how did somebody say? Tell you? So this is very funny. I'm going to keep it quick. So yeah. So this yeah. I usually it's three names, right? You get your Christian name, Alan, and you get your traditional name, which is the N, which is Nze. Nze is sort of kind of it's what I think. You ask every African, they say they are tied to a kingdom or something, and being on something.
Okay.
Yeah, but anyway, that's the name of a grandfather who was a leader, and then my parental name, which is Tita. But what happened was Alan wasn't my name to start with.
I
It
knew
was
it. I
this
knew
one
it.
called Thevenet, right? Thevenet is a French name, and it's a gentleman who worked with my dad early on, and a French guy. And so I got that name, Thevenet, but nobody could pronounce that name. Oh God, I'm going to give myself another name. But my grandparents, they called me Table Knife, all right, Table Knife. So an uncle just said, let's get this done with. So please don't call me that name, and said Alan. So everyone will have,
So who gave you Alan? Your
Alan
family?
it's an uncle.
Uncle.
Yeah,
Uncle.
said, all
Okay.
right, everybody, let's do it. Keep it easy and keep his name straight. Call him Alan. So,
That's interesting.
So how old were you? So did you grow up knowing you were already Alan,
no, no,
or
no. This happened quickly before I could even get
oh,
any name on it.
Okay.
oh, okay.
Interesting. Interesting.
That's funny. That's funny. Wearing all these hats that you wear and, doing all the things what is it that brings you the most joy, in your workplace and outside of your workplace?
It's people. It's really people. Starting with my own family, my friends, interacting with them. I try to find more time nowadays to make sure I stay connected. It's friends at home, friends at work, and if you look at SMFM, for example. Right there, we had a meeting of the CHAP Consortium, Chronic Hypertension and Pregnancy Consortium. And, we had a great discussion about some of the follow-up studies since that trial. What really struck me was just the number of people who were there. We stepped outside and took a photo, and this huge number of people were all, smiling, and I just had a meeting. And, interestingly, when I look at that, it's very, to me, it's very uplifting, and it was just a small subset of people who are currently engaged in CHAP. So these relationships that really tie in back to people, keep me very happy. I must say at UAB, one of the things that at work has been a great source of pride and encouragement is just the level of collaboration that goes on, where there is a system of university-wide interdisciplinary centers, and the whole goal of that is to try to break down these walls, within disciplines. So it's just generated a certain level of collaboration across disciplines that drives innovation.
No, I love that. Love that. That's awesome.
I guess for our young listeners, what do you think you've learned in your career that you wished you knew earlier, that you can pass on now with all your experience? I think some you've talked about, but there's anything else that you wish you knew earlier?
Yeah. I think I've touched on those, and the most important is that I think you will get where you want to go sooner if you know where you're going. So, bringing some method to it. I remember talking to a mentee a couple of years ago and said, okay, what are you planning to do? What do you want to be? In fact, she said, I want to be a dean. I was like, Lord, you're thinking already, I want to be a dean. You're thinking already about that. I was very impressed because I thought if you are thinking now so early on that you want to be a dean, then you are doing the things that get you
Yes.
there, right? So I think very important to be clear about where you want to go. If you don't get up one day and it's clear, but it's an evolving thing. You're talking to people, getting advice, etc. But always have a plan as a living document that you can always modify. If you know that that's where you're going to go, it will help you make some decisions early on that move you towards that goal. And I have a great example. I'm not going to go into in depth where I passed up on an opportunity, right? Totally was like, oh, I'm so busy and everything. I'm not going to do this. If I was thinking really 10 years, and then I would have I would have totally accepted that opportunity and taken it on, because now looking back, it aligns with some of the things that I want to do. So please have a plan. Have a plan. It can always change, but that really makes things easy. Obviously, put in the work, and then it's not all about work. It's about the things that make you happy and who is important to you.
And expanding on that a little bit, Alan, my comment would be, like, actually one of our residents told me once, what do you want to be? She said a surgeon general. So same thing, being surgeon general. I think that's great, and I agree with you. It's good to have that goal, but I think more than that, I think it's better to have a goal. Let's say, Dean, she could have said, I want to educate people and, lead a major university. Surgeon General could have said, I want to make healthcare more accessible in the US and prescription more accessible, whatever. You probably were not thinking of being the chairman in Alabama, but wanted to decrease maternal mortality worldwide and be part of a global health thing. So I think, the calling, it's sometimes more important that, I want to be president or director, or some kind of title, because the title, if you have the calling, the title will come. You don't even have to apply. People will come to Alan and say, do you want to be director? Do you want to be chair? Do you want to be whatever? At least that's what happened in a small way for me. Versus if people know that you're driving somewhere, you have a clear goal, then they'll come to you and say, help me lead this, because, you have what it takes.
Yeah, I think that's really a great clarification, Vincenzo. I totally agree with that. And this was a mentee who I think came from the best of places, like was already doing a lot to mentor people, etc. So saying a dean, it made sense to me. It's like you want to grow programs, etc. But it doesn't have to be about that position. It's really about what you want to accomplish. I also say it's a whole new world, right, that we are adapting to. It's a whole new generation, and some of the values are, evolving. Some people may say, I want to go now and make $10 million by the time I'm done. But I hope that is $10 million helping people. But if that's your goal, whether it's acceptable, but that really allows you to do the things to move towards that goal.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I love that. Yeah, at the end of the day, it all comes down to living a life of service, right? Because I think the more you give, the more life gives to you too. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And and I love that. And when you talk about this journey of getting everywhere, I'm sure, all of us as humans, when we go through pursue our goals, at some point you have hiccups, or you have challenging moments or difficult moments. Have you ever found yourself in a position like that where you were like, okay, this was a challenging time in my career, and when you are in that place, what is the mindset that helps you keep moving forward, keep believing? Like, what is that mindset for you?
Yeah, there have been many instances, and it's that whole thing of just knowing what you want to do and keeping at it, and perhaps adapting, right? Adapting towards that goal. When I work with people who are trying to write grants and get funding to be able to do their work, and submit a grant the first time, it doesn't get discussed, or it doesn't get scored in a way to be funded. I can open up my NIH portal and say, look at the number of failures here that never got funded. But hey, this one was not discussed, and eventually we were able to get it funded. So there are so many of those examples, and it's a matter of being persistent. I also it's and also listening to your mentors, but I would also say that I have one at least an example where I really believed in something, right? And I was like, this makes so much sense. But we went in about 2 or 3 times, and we were not successful. And the mentor was like, well, maybe it's time to evolve from this and do, something else. And we discussed it and said, okay, this is our last shot. Let's. I really feel like something is going on here. We agreed, and went in and boom, things happen, and we're able to do some things that hopefully improved care and improved and reduced costs of healthcare. But we were almost giving up on this initiative. So persistence, believing in what you want to do, not blindly, but talking to mentors is very important. People who are savvy, getting as much input as possible to help with a decision. And so one of the things that I've really learned is that please don't hold it right here. Talk to people. Most people want to help you achieve your goals, and having that conversation, you refine the ways to get there. And culturally, for some of the places we come from, it may not be the first reflex to be that open with things. Talk to people. Yeah.
I love that. I love that you say that, especially when you're a young faculty or young trainee or something. Sometimes you have great ideas, but it's you almost doubt if it's good enough to go share with someone. Like you feel like I want to go talk to this person, I want to tell them, but maybe this idea is dumb, maybe it's not great. Should I tell them? What are they going to think? How do you push past that? How do you say no? I'm going to go ahead and share because I want to.
I think it's just knowing that and getting this kind of information that you don't really stand to lose much. If anything, you stand to gain. And so just knowing that it's the way to move forward. Rarely you may find. I've had things where somebody was going to share something with me and wanted me to sign a non-disclosure and say I'm not going to use their idea and everything. That's not really, for the most part, especially with us in obstetrics. I'm like, this is not how we operate. We share ideas, we respect each other, and that conversation, for the most part, moves us forward. The other thing about grants is what I've just, because it's one area obviously for research, those who do research, is that I tell my mentees every effort in doing a grant, or for that matter, writing a paper that's not accepted, moves you forward. It moves you forward. So it's really helps you to make a better case the next time.
No, I love that. Yeah, so there's no loss, just lessons learned and keep adding on.
Yeah.
Let me ask you, Alan, in your non-professional time, what are your hobbies, pastimes, anything you want to share that is unique to you that you like to do, to unwind, or, again, you we're talking about the importance of non-professional time. How does
Yeah.
Alan Tita do that?
Yeah, thank you. And over time, that this applies to me, that this becomes quite important. There are a number of things. One, again, is just family. I have 2 daughters that, at the world, to me, and family is just it's great. So spending time with family, spending time with friends, hosting is great. I'm also a bit of a movie type person, detective things. So I do some of that. Also doing some music with my young daughter, and don't ask me to play. I still have a long way to go there. I probably started late. But the other thing that has taken some of my time, and I won't call this war, is that in Cameroon there is an ongoing war, right? That is pitches the colonial heritage of French and English together, and one group, a minority group that I come from, feeling marginalized. And this has evolved into a war that's killing people, keeping kids away from school since about 2016, 2017. A classmate of mine, a decent guy, was one of some of early leadership of this and was held in prison for almost a year. Um, and so you continue to see things that manifest, you know, the things that should not really be happening. So one of the things what we did with as a group together was to start a humanitarian organization. It's called the Cameroon Humanitarian Relief Initiative that, has evolved over time, but it's been doing work, bringing relief to refugees, hundreds of thousands that have also been internally displaced in the country, and funding things like small projects that help people get some, to an extent, some semblance of, normalcy. And so we continue to do that with the help of a number of people, and that's something that's important to me.
That's
Yeah.
great.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. I just want to highlight that, every time we've shared this platform with so many amazing leaders. And one thing that's always a common denominator that strikes out to me every time is this unwavering commitment to serve the community, to keep helping the people around you. Like that's what always seems to make people succeed. So, I think that's such an important thing to remind each other, is that we all are here to just help each other, walk each other home, uplift each other. All your passions are always seems to all be in alignment with serving a greater purpose. Even the things that you say you're doing, outside, you're non-professional. It's always to serve a greater purpose, which is beautiful, really.
Yeah, yeah, thank you. And we can match, right, and mix. And I was reading somewhere, and someone, and I didn't quite know this. It's like, how many weeks do you have to live, right? If you ask me without thinking about it, I'll be like, oh, 10,000. Or it's about 3 to 4,000 weeks that we have to live. And putting that into perspective, I'm like, each week is so valuable. It's so valuable for all the things that we want to do, and finding time for the things that are important and making sure you are doing them in this finite period is very important. Not that this is something I just happened on again. I was like, no, I didn't know it was 3,000 to 4,000, 3,000 to 4,000. So my goodness, how many more weeks do we have? All right, so it's like just to say, the time is so valuable, and engaging in the things that allow us to move forward rather than in the things that seek discord, treat people in a very, as if they were, just treat people as if they are non-entities, and some of that is just so aggravating. We really don't have the time for that. Sorry, I'm not going to get to, but it's just, there is very little time to dwell in some of those other things.
Kavita, we only have about a minute left. Do you want to do the honor? You want to ask one last question before we wrap it up? It's been an amazing hour, Alan.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I'm just, still soaking in all the wisdom you've been sharing here. I guess, you're talking about weeks and time. What is one thing you're looking forward most to in this week?
Oh, wow. I always look forward to the weekends to spend time, even more time with family. I have my daughter who is in college and sometimes comes. So I'm looking forward to that. And then I happen to be talking to the UAB Medical Alumni Organization this on Saturday at noon. So I'm looking forward to doing that because I see that as a great opportunity to, commune with folks and say there is so much that we can do together. So thank you.
No, thank you so much, Dr. Alan Tita. We are so grateful for your time today and all the stories you've shared. I just wanted to highlight that you are truly a leader who exemplifies living a life of service. Like that's what all your stories really highlight. And I think that is just so inspiring. And I hope all our listeners walk away today feeling as inspired as I did, and continue to do great things with all your own strengths and your inspiration.
Thank
Thank
you. Really,
you.
thank you for the opportunity.
Thanks, Alan. Again, I'm sharing something that somebody else
Yeah,
shared that you guys know. Wonderful tribute to you both. And we're going to share again one of the phrases you used before. If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. Alan, it's been super inspiring. I've had goosebumps a few times during this hour because of what you said. Again, thanks for being with us and being such an inspiration to so many of us.
thank you. Thank
Thank you all.
you. Right.